like a meeting with George Lucas, and they're like, George, this is Star Trek. How do we make this work? And they said George responded with, just put lightsabers in it. And it's like, what? Just, okay, yeah. Okay, so finally, getting to JJ. JJ is a guy who doesn't have any experience with Star Trek whatsoever. He, as far as what he likes science fiction-wise, he's a huge fan of The Twilight Zone, but he could never get into Star Trek. He tried, and this is prior to, him even thinking about doing the Star Trek film, but Star Trek just, it wasn't working for him, so he just sort of passed on it. When it came time for the movie, he sort of accepted it and said, well, when am I going to do my space movie? I want to make a Star Wars movie so bad. I want to do Star Wars, and this is probably my best chance of being able to do that. So they said, JJ, would you like to do Star Trek and reboot it, and let's, revamp things up and make some money, and the machine continues. And JJ's like, okay, fine. And JJ, talking about how, well, it's not about Kirk and Spock. It's a story about two characters which happen to be Kirk and Spock. He sort of took Star Trek and tried to tell his own. Well, listen. There have been Nicholas Meyer directed Star Trek 2, directed Star Trek 6. He didn't know anything about Star Trek. I mean, Nicholas Meyer jokes in the audio commentary for Star Trek 2 that, how he opened up the film in Wrath of Khan with in the 23rd century, or whatever he put, and he said that he put that in there to explain it to his grandfather, where everything was, but then he said that he probably just put that in there to explain it to himself. And Nick Meyer didn't get Gene Roddenberry's vision for it. He made it more like, the bridge of the Enterprise was a submarine, that sort of thing, and that's when the militaristic stuff got into Star Trek, was Nicholas Meyer and Wrath of Khan. And we look at that, and I love Wrath of Khan, and I love Search for Spock, and great. It's just so good. But, Nick Meyer didn't know anything about Star Trek, but he made great films. It was just Wrath of Khan, though, and the other one. But he made a great film. I've got problems with Undiscovered Country, so maybe that's where my thing with Nick Meyer doing Star Trek. I don't know. I just have some problems with Star Trek 6, even though it is a good movie. I talked about it a couple weeks ago in episode 3. But Nicholas Meyer, a guy who knew nothing about Star Trek, really made a great Star Trek film and defined a lot of the Star Trek franchise. That film did, Wrath of Khan. And you look at, let's see, Robert Wise. I don't know how much Star Trek he understood, but that was a great film as well. The motion picture, unbelievably great film. And Gene Roddenberry, though, had a lot of input on that one. He had nothing to do with Wrath of Khan and onwards. But I think it was it happened to work in Wrath of Khan, getting a guy who knew nothing about Star Trek. But 2009, I don't know. As a director, I think JJ's strength is just, you look at the stylization of 2009, and it's amazing. J.J. Abrams has an incredible style, and I really like Bad Robot, and I like that whole thing, and Super 8 was awesome. That's where J.J. Abrams was sort of redeemed in my mind, as Super 8 was so awesome. So I'm like, JJ, I like you, but I don't think you made a particularly... Well, you didn't make a Star Trek film. It's just sort of a whatever, and as a film, it needs improvement, character-wise, for me anyway. It was a horny space cadet movie. Excuse the crudity of that statement, but that's what it was. That's what you turned everybody into. You turned Uhura and Kirk into parading around in their underwear. I mean, that's really what it felt like to me. Here's where we look at J.J. Abrams and what he's given us with Star Trek, and now that he's able to direct Star Wars, my goodness, what is he going to do with that? But here's the catch. Here's the interesting thing, folks. Could you sit down with J.J. Abrams and go like, remember how in episode 36 Kirk came to the Gorn and he said, "You little green-skinned piece that," remember that episode and how the transfixuration beams were penetrated into the maximized, J.J. Abrams couldn't talk that way. But if you sit down with J.J. and you say, remember how Yoda said, "Do not, or do try, but do so justly"? You remember how he said that? Wasn't that great? And J.J. Abrams would know exactly what you're talking about. And that's the thing. Does J.J. have an understanding of the Star Wars universe that he will put into the next Star Wars movie versus how he just sort of made his stylized Star Trek version? Oh, by the way, one more little comparison as far as Star Trek 2009 sort of inspired by Star Wars a little bit. They treated Vulcan like Alderaan, and Kirk had his little Luke Skywalker twin sons moment when he drove up to the Enterprise being built on the ground with no holes in his tires. My phone's ringing. I'll be right back. But that's what I'm wondering. Star Trek 2009 was not genuine and it wasn't of that same purity and world of the franchise of the 20th century. And that's why I refer to it, in the iTunes description for this. It talks about how I am exploring the Star Trek franchise of the 20th century, and it says that because that's where the most meaningful that's when the most meaningful Star Trek was produced. And as JJ is going to be helming Star Wars 7, will it be genuine? Will it be pure? And will we not look at it as Hollywood's reboot bullcrap? And, did I say crap? Oh, I hate saying that word. But anyway, you look at Super 8, and you'd swear that movie was done by Steven Spielberg. And it's so great, Super 8 is. And will we look at Star Wars 7 and say, wow, look at that. That's George Lucas at his best right there, but it's really JJ. And I'm incredibly interested to see how that's going to work out with Star Wars. So there are just infinitely more things that I can just go on off about with Star Wars, Star Trek, J.J. Abrams, Lucas. It just, wow, so much to delve into there. But we'll see as time goes on. Star Trek Into Darkness is coming out later this year, and I'll tell you about that some other time. Star Trek Into Darkness, what I think of the trailers and what I think's going on with that sometime, maybe next time or whenever I feel like it. But yeah, Star Wars 7, piloted by JJ. We will see. May the Force be with him. All right. So let's take a deep breath, and now I think it's time that we are going to engage into our next generation pure awesome season 1 experience. So anyway, wow,
Kurt,
what?
I need to talk to you.
Come on, Mary. I was just about to engage into my episode.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have some urgent matters to alert you to.
I guess I need to keep in mind that I'm still on a starship in the middle of the galaxy, don't I?
Indeed you do.
Nothing you can't tell me right here?
Perhaps you'll need to be on the bridge.
Well, let's get there then. So what's up?
I've been analyzing what happened to our friends earlier, specifically the nature of the explosion.
And?
The explosion was too minimal to have been caused by an internal accident of some sort. After closer inspection of the data obtained, I've come to the conclusion that it was a jettisoned fuel canister that was blown up.
How'd you get to that?
There are some phaser particles left over, and the explosion of a fuel canister in these conditions proves sound. I was checking my theories out while you were recording.
Phaser particles?
Tactically, I believe the ship opened one of its exterior compartments, and veering back, fired at the fuel canister at short range, and synchronized this action with the reactivation of their cloaking device. Let me replay you the footage rendered at a slower speed and enhanced.
Wow. applaud them for a nice trick of smoking meat.